It's Kevin again, and happy election day to all of you. I know all of you are probably either freaking out or you're very happy right now. I know it is a pretty crazy day. I did, in fact, vote. If you guys are wondering, I did. But I'm not here to talk about all of the bullshit that's going on with that right now. Basically, I'm here to do a movie review in this video, essentially as a distraction, is what I meant to do. I wanted to have a distraction from all of this political nonsense because this entire election has been completely insane. I'm not going to get into that, though. I don't want to give my thoughts on that. And I know nothing about politics anyways, you guys know. If you don't believe me, watch one of my Americans reviews, watch my opinion on, like, House of Cards, watch any of those. You will know for a fact I don't know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to politics, because I honestly don't. But either way, I'm here to do a movie review, like I said. And this movie we're reviewing, this is a movie that I definitely was really looking forward to. Definitely not one of the most anticipated, but a movie that I was definitely very excited for. I was really looking forward to this movie overall. I thought that this movie just looked really, really great, and that movie is a movie that I definitely was looking for, like I said, and that movie is Hacksaw Ridge. This is a movie that definitely the second I heard about it, I was very interested in it for a couple of reasons, mainly the cast as well as the director. Just everything about this movie, I definitely was very interested in seeing the way that this movie was going to go. I really did, I really was interested. And I have to say that Hacksaw Ridge overall not just didn't disappoint, but Hacksaw Ridge is by far one of the best movies I have seen all year. I love pretty much everything about Hacksaw Ridge. I really can't find anything I didn't love about it, because I really did love everything about this movie. It's also one of the most different war films that I've ever seen, and definitely a movie that I highly recommend. But let's just get right into the plot of Hacksaw Ridge, because the plot of this movie I find extremely compelling. In fact, in my opinion, it's one of the best plots of the entire year. I love everything about the plot of this movie. Basically, our main character in this movie is Desmond Doss, who was in fact a real person. This is someone who is very much against violence. I'm not going to spoil why, but he is very much against violence, and he is in a time where World War II is happening and people are getting enlisted left and right, and he really feels like he wants to do something about this. He wants to find a way to save them. He's always wanted to be a doctor, but unfortunately, he didn't, has none of medical school training. So he basically makes it his duty to go into the war, but not as someone to fight or kill, but as a savior. He wants to save all these people, despite what everyone thinks of him, and obviously he's getting weird looks because of what's going on. But that basically is the plot of Hacksaw Ridge, is him going in, hoping he can save everyone. I really do love the plot to this movie, but there's a lot more to this movie than that, and let's just get into it, starting off with the cast. So let me just say something about the cast for this movie, because usually, as you guys know, I'm not the hugest fan of horror movies. I've said this many times before, not because I don't think that they're effective, not because I don't think that they're really well made. It's just a lot of times I find them to be very routinal. They're very much the same thing. You have characters and then they die, and they're just, to me, they're very overly long, and I didn't really know what this movie was going to be, but I have to say that this movie really does take its time when it comes to the characters. In fact, this is a very character-focused movie, and luckily, it's not just the main character. But let's first get into Andrew Garfield as Desmond T. Doss, because this is exactly what I've been wanting from Andrew Garfield. I mean, Andrew Garfield, I think, has been giving some really good performances. He was great as Spider-Man. I will definitely say that. He was very good with what he had. Was it a good portrayal of Peter Parker? Not really. I don't really think it's the best portrayal of it. I don't really think it's that great of a portrayal. I think Tobey Maguire was a lot better. But I did like what we got from him. I didn't see 99 Homes yet, but the movies he's done, he just hasn't really gotten the recognition that he deserves. And let me just say that if he doesn't win, at least get nominated for an Oscar in this movie, I will be shocked, because he absolutely killed it as this character of Desmond T. Doss. Not just in his pathos, but also just in him as a character. I found this character to be so interesting. The fact that he's out there and he wants to save everyone and things like that, and how he's not going to let anyone tell him otherwise. This isn't someone who's going to be easily influenced by anyone. This isn't someone who's going to be like, alright, yeah, I'll fight. He won't even touch a gun, we see, and it's all very compelling the way he did that. And this is a character that I think could have come across as really phony and just really dumb and not really work on the screen because of how great Garfield really was. He has completely transformed to this role. I mean, he's doing an accent, he's just doing something completely different than he's done, and I loved everything about this character. Desmond Doss is a very quiet guy. Well, not a quiet guy, but he's a very different guy from everyone else, and I think he just stuck out really well. He was absolutely the star in this movie. I loved everything about him. He was so great, and definitely one of the best performances I've seen all year. I loved everything about Andrew Garfield in this movie, and I will be very surprised if he doesn't at least, like I said, get nominated for an Oscar for this, because he really was fantastic. However, as I said, luckily, the rest of the cast in this movie are just as great. I think all the performances in this movie are fantastic. Everyone is perfectly casted. Vince Vaughn in this movie as Sergeant Howell is, in my opinion, the best sergeant role we have had since the dude in Full Metal Jacket. I can't think of his name right now, but he draws a lot of comparisons to that. He's actually provides some really great humor throughout the movie, and I thought that was really well done. But I also really like that he really does care about all these men. You definitely do see that. This is someone who, of course, he is at first thrown off when Dawes says, oh, I'm not going to fight and everything, but he understands it, and you understand why he's so tough. You understand that he really cares about them, and I really love what they do with this character overall. He overall was really great. I loved really Vince Vaughn was great. It's great to see him have a great role again, because he really hasn't had a great role in a while, so I was very happy to see him have the role he did in this movie. And Sam Worthington as well, surprisingly, was great. I mean, I've been waiting for Sam Worthington to have that big role. I mean, clearly people have seen Sam Worthington as a really good actor, but he just hasn't really been able to shine, and this movie, he really does finally get that chance to do it as Captain Glover. Someone who is at first appalled by Doss and says, who the fuck is this guy? Who does he think he is? How dare he come in here? But then, once he starts to realize who Doss really is, he really starts to get behind him, and he starts to use him more. And the way that Captain Glover sees Doss, I overall was really happy with. I really did like Sam Worthington's character overall. He was great in this movie. However, I think the only other performance that kind of is a rival to Andrew Garfield, definitely should be nominated for Best Supporting Actor, is Hugo Weaving as Tom Doss. I knew absolutely nothing about this character going into the movie. I didn't know any history about Desmond Doss except what the trailer did, and I'm glad that they didn't reveal anything about him. All I'm going to say is he plays Desmond's father, who is a former war hero and has his own personal beliefs for violence and things like that. And he's basically the sole reason why Desmond doesn't really want to be associated with violence. And I thought overall Hugo Weaving was so great in this movie. The way they portray PTSD, because he is in fact going through PTSD throughout almost this entire movie, the way they portray that was great. But also the way he channeled grief and just the anger. I mean, you can tell this is someone who is very against war and just is very upset that he ever did it and doesn't know why it's happening again. And just the way that he portrayed all that, I thought was so great. I love the way that he did this movie. He really was great. All the scenes with Andrew Garfield really great as well. And like I said, I think he really did do a great job at being almost as great as Andrew Garfield. He doesn't win at least in us, a nomination, I'd be very surprised. There are two scenes in this movie that from him that I feel are extremely Oscar-worthy. One is the very first scene of the movie, I think was really well done. The other one involves Doss in a courtroom, and he gives this, and Tom comes in, he gives this monologue, and it was by far one of the best scenes in the movie. I loved everything about what Hugo Weaving did. He really was great here. And then the only person I really want to talk about is Teresa Palmer as Dorothy. I've been hard on Teresa Palmer, as you guys know. I think Teresa Palmer is a capable actress. I don't think that she's bad. I don't really think she's had anything that great, though. Even in Lights Out, I don't think she was really the standout in that. She was good for what she had, but here, she was great as Dorothy. This is by far Teresa Palmer's best performance, and I really hope she continues to do movies like this, because I think Teresa Palmer can be really great. She just needs good material to work with, and she needs to stop picking mediocre scripts, and she overall was really great in this movie. I really like what we got with her and Doss. There's actually some really cute stuff between these two, and it's one of the most believable relationships I've seen all year by far. I mean, you really do believe that these two are in love, and sometimes that can detract from a movie, but it really didn't. It added to this, and I think they did that really well here. The love that these two have for each other. It's not the central theme of the movie, but it definitely is one of the key middle, one of the smaller themes, and I think they showed that very well. The love between these two I thought was very well done, and definitely really provides some great hearts and some really nice light-hearted stuff in this movie that otherwise is a very dark and very harrowing film, definitely. So the acting really was great in this movie. I think everyone really did a great job, but I really do want to talk about the directing and the screenplay because once again we have another very controversial director here in that of Mel Gibson. I know that yes, it was years ago what he did, but it seems like everyone wants to talk about his personal beliefs and everything that, what Mel Gibson did. Am I condoning what he did back all those years ago? Obviously not. I think what he did is disgusting. I think what he did is completely wrong. I'm not going to let that affect my judgment on this movie because in terms of directing, Mel Gibson is by far some of the best directing I've seen all year. I mean, he absolutely slayed it when it came to the directing. He perfectly portrayed the horrors of war and what it means to be in a war and everything. He was fantastic in terms of directing, and I'm worried that he's going to get snubbed. I really am. I'm hoping that the Academy is smart and realizes how great his directing was because they really shouldn't let someone's personal beliefs affect them. I think it's stupid, honestly, if you do that. I understand why. Sometimes it's hard to separate the man from the product. I understand that. But I feel like when you're nominating content, it should be the content creator, it should be more about the content and not the creator himself. And that's something that a lot of people tend to do. And I think that that's one that I'm hoping that this movie doesn't get snubbed for that reason, because if it does, I'll be very pissed. But his directing in this movie was absolute perfection. I think he perfectly got the tone down very, very well, especially in the scenes of war, but also in the scenes of Doss's home life. He did a really good job at fleshing it out and giving us this really not fun, but just really normal tone that I thought was really well done. But he definitely does not at all shy away from the horrors of war, and we'll get into that. But I thought he did a great job of the directing. The screenplay is one of the best I have heard all year. I loved everything about the screenplay. What I love the most about it is the way this movie really does take its time, because you're thinking this movie is a war movie, and it is, but while it is a war movie, it's also, I think, 50% a faith type film, because this is a man who is very much driven by his, faith and his commitment to God. And a lot of movies nowadays get berated for that, or they become very heavy-handed. This movie didn't do that, though. This movie shows that yes, that was part of Desmond's life, but it doesn't try to focus on it a ton. There's no scene of him being like, oh, you must pray to God. There's nothing ridiculous like that. And I have nothing wrong with that, but I do have things wrong. If it gets heavy-handed, then it's silly. But this movie, I think they handled it perfectly. I really did love the screenplay of this movie. I think the writing was just so well done here. I was into the story the whole time, and again, like I said, one of the most compelling plots we've had of any this year. The whole idea of anti-violence, yes, it has been done before, but it works so well. Anything that seems like it's silly in this movie, they find a way to humanize it, and it works very well, and I thought that was very well done. But the other thing I really loved about the writing is that every character in this movie really is a human. And yes, this is based on true events, and they really do a great job with making these characters humans, and that's something that we rarely see in these, not rarely see, but I feel like this movie really did a good job in showing the characters and showing really who they are, why they feel this way about Doss. And when it's eventually revealed why Doss is so against violence, why he won't even touch a gun, you really can get behind it, and they did a really good job with that. There are some incredible monologues in this movie that I absolutely loved, and just some incredible lines overall. So the story in general I thought was fantastic. I loved everything about it. The cinematography is maybe the best I have seen all year. I love the cinematography in this movie. I think it was just perfectly captured the way the war was done. And what I love about the movie is that it starts off not lighthearted, but it starts off where it's like, okay, this won't be that bad. But then you get to the war scenes, which the war scenes themselves are terrifying. These scenes are crazy, and you might have heard Chris Stuckman say, or other critics, and I'm just going to say Chris Stuckman because I heard him say that this movie is kind of like Saving Private Ryan, and it definitely is just as graphic. The scenes in this movie are downright horrifying. I was not at all prepared for them, but the way they portray them is as accurate as possible. It's not trying to demonize anyone. It's not trying to bash you over the head with all this horrible stuff. It's just showing you what war was like, and how horrifying it really was. And I will say it's definitely not a movie that you go to if you are easily affected by very brutal violence, because there is some very brutal stuff in the second half of this movie, particularly in the first, I'd say, war scene is probably the worst. I think the first one definitely. One scene in particular got me definitely, and I was so shocked and ham, like it comes out of nowhere, but I think they showed that so well in this movie. The cinematography was just so well done in the way the war scenes were, but also in general, the way that the home life was depicted, just the cinematography in general was so well done. Sam Dugan did such a good job with it, and definitely this movie should definitely be nominated for best cinematography, because I thought they did a really good job with that. And I also forgot to say the camaraderie between all these men, you definitely do see. While there are times where they're maybe picking on each other or joking around, they really do rely on each other, and that's something that's really great about this movie, that you really do have faith in all of them, you really do care about them, and there's no one really that you absolutely despise, and I think they did a really good job with that. But the other thing I loved about Doss as a character, and like I said, the way they pay attention to the characters, is that he's not perfect. I mean, this isn't a movie where he saves everyone. There are obviously people that die, and that's something the movie showed very, very well. They could have easily made Doss, oh, this human that has nothing wrong with him, and he's just perfect, because, yeah, the movie doesn't really give him a ton of flaws, but he does have some things in his life that he's done that he's definitely not proud of, just like any of us do, and they showed that really well with this character. They did a good job of not portraying him as some god, which I think a lesser movie would have done, but this movie really didn't do that. They did whatever they could to show that this is just a guy who was so, set on saving everyone that he happened to save almost everyone, and when you find out how many people he saved, it is remarkable. But like I said, he didn't save everyone. There definitely were people that died, and the movie did a really good job of not shying away from that, which I think a lesser film really would have done. The score in this movie is incredible. I really did love the score. But what I like about it is that it's not used a ton. It's only used, I'd say, in the third act of the movie. The second act, when there's war scenes going on, it's almost completely silent. That's one of the reasons why Saving Private Ryan was such a good movie, is that they cut back a lot of the score and focused on the war itself. There's really nothing you need to, make war so emotional, except just show the war. Show the war, show all the carnage, show all the people that die, and damn does this movie not shy away from that. I mean, probably some of the most horrifying stuff, and definitely the most horrifying war scenes I've seen since Saving Private Ryan, which I have seen Saving Private Ryan. If you guys want to check out that review, it's not that great. I will definitely say it's not a great review, but if you guys want to check it out, definitely do so. The cinematography was just so well captured, and I thought they did that really well. But when they did play the score, I thought was really well done. I really did like it, and I honestly would think I could see it being nominated for best score. I really did love the score of this movie. Something about it was so epic, and I really loved it. The editing here was perfect. This is a movie that's 131 minutes, and it never felt that length. This movie to me felt like 90 minutes. It really went by very, very quickly, especially once we got into the war. I mean, from there, it just went so quick, and I think it's just because of how compelling and just interesting this movie really is. There's nothing in this movie that took me out of it. Nothing. There's not a single thing that took me out of this movie, and I was very happy about that. Nothing took me out of it. Nothing made me, checking the time or anything. I was into this movie basically the whole time, and they did really a great job with that. I thought the editing was perfect. This movie was very well edited. Now, I can see if some people say that the ending is very, very rushed, but for me, it worked really well, and that's mainly because of something that happens later in the film, and I'm not going to go into spoilers. Obviously, this isn't really a movie to spoil or anything, but if you guys want to know more about that, just private message me, and I'll tell you what I mean. But for me, I don't think the ending was rushed. I think it was very well done, and the way that they do the cuts between, when they show the real people, I thought was overall really well done. A lot of the times that stuff is done for not shock value, but just like, oh, that's what happened, or oh, that's really sad. But they did a good job at showing all the great things that they did, and I really did like seeing the way it was done, and seeing these characters, you can really do see how well they portrayed them. I definitely thought that was really well done, and the ending in general, I really did like. I didn't think it was too rushed. I thought it worked really well. Definitely some shocking things in the end I definitely wasn't expecting, but overall, I thought it was really well done. I loved everything about it. And also, let me just say, this movie has a lot to say about not just war, because yes, this is a war movie, but it really is a movie about humanity, like I said, and it really is about, just what it means to be a human, when especially when it's in such a dangerous and emotionless subject like war, which is something that gets to so many people. When you're forced to be a soldier out there and you kill people, it obviously does have an impact on you, and this movie really does focus on that very, very well, especially someone like Doss, who is someone who is so against violence. I think they showed that so well in this movie. The way that that affects him, the way that he's horrified by this, the way that he wants no part of it, just everything about that I thought the movie showed very, very well. And even the Japs in this movie, the Japs who are supposed to be the villains, he's even saving them at points in this movie. He doesn't see these people as the enemy versus the heroes. He sees them all as people in need who need help, and I loved the way the movie did that. I really have not seen a war movie like that before. And that's something that's very, very different. It's rare to do something original nowadays, but that's really different. For us to see both the enemies and the humans in a war, and for us to have a character who doesn't see them that way at all, I thought was really well done, and I absolutely love the way it was handled here. And that really does, that is really one of the big reasons why this movie was as successful as it was. So overall, guys, Hacksaw Ridge is by far one of the best movies I have seen all year. I loved pretty much everything about it. It was honestly better than I thought it was going to be, and like I said, it's definitely not for everyone, definitely not for the faint of heart. It's a very hard movie to watch, but at the end of the day, I really can't find a single thing wrong with this movie, and for me to say this movie really is something great is a lot to say. This movie in general is one of the best war movies I've ever seen, without a doubt, and I am absolutely going to give Hacksaw Ridge a 5 out of 5 or an A+. Guys, I know, oh, you're focusing on the positive, you're judging the movie by flaws. No, I'm not doing that. I'm judging it based on how I liked it. I absolutely love this movie. You will for sure see it in my top 10 by the year. I can guarantee you will. This movie really affected me. This is a very effective, emotional, very powerful film, but also a very hopeful one that, like I said, really shows that there are humans out there, and I thought they showed that very, very well in this movie. Everything about it was so well portrayed. It truly is unlike any other war film you've seen. Definitely check it out. It's not for everyone. Definitely, it's very hard to watch, but it is one of the most effective, profound, and overall one of the overall best films I've seen by far this year that I highly recommend you see if you haven't already. But over, guys, my review of Hacksaw Ridge. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie. You have seen it. I definitely really love this movie. Absolutely one of the best movies I have seen so far this year. What do you think of this movie? How did you like the way it portrayed war? And if you know the true story, how accurately was it depicted? I try not to go into the movie knowing a ton about that because I feel like it ruins the experience if I do. But that's my review. Hope you all enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for another movie review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.